Today's episode of RBR is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to help easily expand your online presence through websites and much more. So guys, there is two schools of thoughts between AMG addicts as to what is the quintessential AMG when you look back at the past. Some think, like me, that it's the C63 S. Others rightly also think that it could be the E-Class AMG family. Now, it's probably the one that's got the most deep-rooted history as far as an AMG could go back, in terms of certainly the one that put it on the map, which was the infamous Hammer back in the day. So today we're going to look at the facelift E63, which I think brings things back to what the E really meant in terms of exterior design and keeps things just as sweet in terms of the performance of the facelift. So without further ado, let's dive straight into the rejuvenated Hammer, the E63 S. So guys, today's episode is sponsored by Squarespace, and I'm super excited to announce that I'm using Squarespace to finally create the RBR website for car review articles, but also an online store for our first ever RBR merchandise, which I cannot wait to show you. It's such a powerful yet simple platform to use in order to create websites, portfolios, a blog, or even an online store. It's generally a super easy platform to get started with, using their templates as a start, then customize them to your own brand and style, and the tools are so easy to use but versatile that you'll always have a unique look. So guys, I've got a special offer for you. Just use the link below to get 10% off your first website or domain and use the code REMOVEBEFORERACE. I can't wait to show you more on the RBR website itself and the merchandise. Until then, support our sponsors, and back to the episode. So guys, I'm going to pre-warn you. We're going to have a little bit of a fight when it comes to the design of this car, because I completely disagree with all the comments that I've seen saying that it's not as aggressive as the pre-facelift version. But we'll get onto that aspect later, and I think it's a case of actually having to see the car in person. Before I do that, I want to delve back a little bit into the history of the E-Class, particularly with reference to design and crazy performance. And to do that, you have to go again back to the daddy, which was in the W124 series of cars, and that was the AMG Hammer. This is what was created when the then independent AMG took a 5-litre V8 and shoved it into a relatively small car and created something that could go from 0 to 60 in just 5 seconds. Now you have to remember, this was back when something like the Ferrari Testarossa was doing 0 to 60 in 5.5. So it caused an absolute storm. It put AMG on the map. And this is why I was saying that the E-Class has such a place in AMG history as the one that set the formula for everything. Wide body, big engine, big power, great on looks, great on emotion. And the ones after this kind of followed suit as well. If we look at, for example, the W210 E55, 349 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 in a commendable 5.4 seconds as well. Particular reference to the rear of this car, because the rear lights is something I'm going to really focus on today. You notice part of the rear lights are on the boot lid, part are on the body. And to me, this is classical E-Class, going all the way back to the original Mercedes saloons. So a good looking car, good performance. Then we head on again to, I guess, the first E63 in the W211. This one, I think, made a little bit of an error, like our pre-facelift. The rear lights very, very much like the S-Class, although the front was decidedly very E-Class with the 4 lights on the front. But I think because of that, the design wasn't quite as memorable as what followed afterwards, which is probably one of the best looking E-Classes ever, the W212. Again, you'll notice, I'm going to start as I have here with the rear, how you have part of the light on the body, part of the light on the boot lid. And to me, again, this is just E-Class. It's what made the rear look very aggressive compared to most E-Classes. The front, of course, was very aggressive still, but that rear is what really makes the car an E for me, more than whatever's going on the front end. Again, this was a very, very fast car. We had the lovely 5.5-litre V8. We also had the first E63 S in this. The first ever 4MATIC in the rest of the world, not in the UK, came in this generation as well in the facelift. So again, very impressive. Then we go to the next model, the W213, which is our pre-facelift car. Now this car really set the rules for
how dynamic and how clever a super saloon had to be in the modern era. Particular reference to 4MATIC Plus with the switchable rear-wheel drive drift mode, and the first E63 to go above the 600 horsepower threshold. Rumor has it that it made BMW M delay the M5 and rethink their things a little bit, because they soon followed suit with more power than they were planning on previously, allegedly, and with also, again, a switchable rear-wheel drive on the X-Drive. So this was, again, a market-shaking product that did things that no one else was even considering at the time. The pre-facelift was also, in my opinion, the dynamic leader, with particular reference to how good the steering feel was versus the M5. But I do feel that the standard M5 was way more comfortable. Most people have echoed that as well. I also look at the rear of this car, and to me, it's just too C-Class, it's too S-Class. And because of that, the changes that we have in the facelift are so important as far as I'm concerned. Now, when we look at the facelift, there's a big change on the outside, and it kind of betrays not that many changes on the inside. And the reason for that is that the E63 was an already brilliant product. Now, I've highlighted its main issue, and AMG went straight to work on that. So the suspension has been tweaked on this to give a greater bandwidth to the new E63 S in being much more comfortable when you need it to be, but having the same dynamic ability when you go up to Sport Plus and race modes. Part of that is down to having AMG Dynamics, so you get that much more variance in how you can set the car up with the system that originated in the GTs. But it also comes down to specific elastokinematics and different hardware in terms of the dynamic engine mounts, again, to make the car that much more comfortable. It still has the exact same horsepower, it has the exact same gearbox to set it apart from the hybridized V8, for example, in the GL E63 S. So it's a bit more old school, and I think the E63 is going to be the one to have in the future should the rumors on the C63 come to fruition. It's going to be that V8 saloon that is not as big as you might think, particularly due to the design, which I'll get onto later. But it's going to be the sweet spot. It's going to be the quintessential AMG once again going in the future. And whereas the previous car again suffered because it had an outdated operating system, it also suffered because the front end was a front end that was completely outdated by the time that the car came in. We were surrounded by cars with the new face of AMG, which was originating from the GT3 and the AMG GT-R, and we had an E63 with a twin bar grille. But our facelift has fixed this problem now. So what we are going to do, we're going to go through the entirety of the design and show you really close up, hopefully in a view that is a bit more in person, to show you just how aggressive this new design is. A lot of comments were made on the E63 wagon video of how people didn't think it was that aggressive. I respectfully disagree with everybody. This front end just looks a lot more wider in person. And it's not just the width, because the width is obviously the same. The illusion here is, first of all, the A-wing, which used to be a V-wing, as you saw in the transitions we were doing earlier. The jet design is a bit more obvious in the lower part. And because this has got that typical AMG GT shark nose, it kind of ends in a very flat way, almost with, there is a certain degree of curvature going that way for the tip of the nose. And because of that, the car doesn't look as big in person. As I said in the other review, it does kind of look a bit more C-Class size. And that makes a big difference. When you see when I'm walking around the front end, look at this view, how large it looks and how intimidating it looks. And that is in a very classy spec. This is a new silver color available on this car. It is not the iridium silver that you're used to. It's got a slight blue tint to it, much like the digital white in the A-Class. So yes, I do disagree with you guys. I do think that this looks a lot more aggressive. And I think when you see it in person, it will hopefully do justice to that fact. Another new option on this is if you get the night package, which you guys would know is dechroming, you can also option a black chrome AMG grille, much like the GT-R Pro had. This particular car also has the carbon package, as you can see here, and on the side sills, and indeed on the back spoiler. Now, talking of the rear of the car, this is where the big changes have taken place, haven't they? This is a lot more in the lines of the W212 than the pre-facelift was, and I think more in the spirit of every E-Class that we've had so far. Simply more E-Class to me.
And that is in isolation of the fact that maybe the C and the S will have similar lights. I think that's slightly irrelevant because the E should look like an E, and this is what the E looks like. The other bit that's changed on the rear is the rear diffuser. So this is slightly wider on this side. The tips come out a bit lower. They're different to the previous tips that were like the 65 AMGs. They are very, very large. The S model in particular gets this form of tip, which has got these kind of strakes going through it. It looks very kind of rocket ship. Something you'd expect at the bottom of a rocket, I feel. That's the best way for me to describe it. That is S model only. And overall, a really, really handsome rear. The best bit, as I said, has to be the lights. Love the light blocks. I do miss the diamond effect inside the Stardust, but the shape of these more than makes up for it in every way. Another great new option inside the E63 has to be the new black and yellow interior. I say black and yellow, but it's not just black, nappa and yellow. You'll notice a two-tone arrangement here. I believe this is a magma grey with black nappa, and you get yellow piping for the first time. You get the yellow stitch like in the Edition 1, but it does set itself apart in a kind of a two-tone way. But again, very AMG, but more subtle in the execution of kind of a two-tone arrangement. One option I've never seen in the E-Class before is the Burmester high-end speakers, so the top level you can get. They look incredible. I mean, look at the way that they're coming out of the door there, and the different positions that they have in the car versus the standard one, and they sound absolutely brilliant. Let us awaken the beast. Nice start menu. There we go, we've got the brand new AMG steering wheel. I did have a chance to play with these buttons a lot more when we previewed the new MBUX that's coming in the S-Class, and I found them a lot easier to use than I thought they would be. So some good news on that. I'm still not a fan of, I call this like that, you know that chocolate dessert you get that you can break with a spoon and you get dessert inside? That's what that looks like to me. But the big star is nice. I just think the leather covered one you get in the S-Class is a lot prettier. I'm also missing the 12 o'clock stitch that you would normally have at the top of the steering wheel here, which is an odd omission on E. And where's the IWC clock gone? Maybe the agreement has changed. I don't know. I'm just missing that there, which is a real shame. It's great to have, of course, different options now versus the previous E-Class on the interior. So we get all of the design options that you would find, say, in the GL E63 S, which is great. So we've got your classic. It's a bit annoying versus the S-Class new MBUX, where you can kind of just swipe to change the design. You've got Sport, Super Sport, Understated. The best one, of course, Super Sport. And you can then configure all of the information that you see in front of you to your own liking, which is really not that common in the industry. So AMG well ahead of the game, Mercedes well ahead of the game in terms of driver zone customization, because it's really important to make a car your own. Now, of course, we've also got MBUX here, which means touchscreen, which means great voice assistant. We've got AMG track pace, of course, so we can record our track times, 0 to 60s. We get some really cool displays on AMG Performance as well. Of course, you've got the brand new touchpad with haptic feedback, which is really easy to use. Then if we give the steering wheel another click on, you will note the new graphics and the new modules, in fact. So the old ones were different design on this side, different design on this side. Now we've got two circular control units, and they've got brand new graphics inside, which look really good, really crisp, really clear. Love that race mode one, that is gorgeous. And then on this side again, you've got traction control. You can either touch it or touch the buttons at the bottom. AMG Dynamics, we've got exhaust, of course. Speaking of exhaust, I really think we should turn this baby on, don't you? So, AMG Motion Start, press the button, hold the pedal. Seriously epic sounding still, which is great. The great thing is, if you don't think it is, you've got a V8 still under the hood. There's so much you can do to accentuate that sound. Whereas if you haven't got a V8, which we might not have in the future, you get where I'm coming from with this. Be grateful that we have it, be grateful we can increase the sound as well, and you've got such a brilliant dynamic car as the basis for all of it.
So guys, can't wait to drive it, can't wait to see if it's more comfortable, can't wait to see if the sound on the run is better as well. I love the design apart from the front lights, which I wish still had the 4-light graphic, but apart from that you need to see it in person, it looks epic. So guys, if you've enjoyed this, please do like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and look forward to the full drive of the Hammer coming on RBR soon. See you next time.